So I know there's a lot of competition here, but the question I've got for you today is, what is the biggest lie that's ever been told? So the runners and riders would be stuff like everything was created from nothing. There was something that went bang. We don't know what caused it to go bang or where it came from and all that jazz. Another one was that we're all accidents. You know, first I was a blob of slime, then I became a tadpole, then I became a zebra and an orangutan, and now I'm a human, allegedly. In the arena of healthcare, we've got the mystery little things that begin with V, Varus, we can't see. We've obviously had 91 Divok and the Britney Spears and the Boosters concerts. We've had all of that recently, and of course that was a huge lie. And the only explanation for that huge lie, wanting to tell such a big, huge lie, such a massive deception, was obviously, let's call it sustainable development. You know, there are too many humans consuming too many finite, non-renewable resources, and we need to, reduce per capita consumption and reduce the number of consumers to make things sustainable, to save the planet. And then obviously you've got global climate, boiling change, all of that, which is being used as an excuse to reduce per capita consumption. So, we've had loads and loads of whoppers like that. But I've got a new huge whopper that I think actually, in terms of reducing the number of human beings on the planet, this one actually dwarfs the 91 Divok and the Britney Spears cull that is of humanity. So what am I talking about? The answer is the food that we've been told that we should be eating, and like many of the things that we've noticed, there's a complete inversion of reality going on, or has been going on. I would say, well, I don't know. It was been going on before the 1970s, but I think things really have got serious since the pushing of what can only be described as high sugar, high carbohydrate, low animal fat, healthy eating advice, oxymoron. If you look back at photographs, I'll maybe put some up in this video now, of the 1970s, people on beaches, and there's there's no obese people in there. There's hardly an overweight person in these scenes from the 1970s. I remember watching, again, I might put up a still of this, of a street scene from 1970s London, and it's just amazing how healthy people look. And this was again before fat-free milk or semi-skim milk was invented, and it was at a time when red meat was commonly eaten. Back then, the typical Englishman ate bacon and eggs for breakfast, and Weetabix and all these other kind of toxic cereals hadn't even been invented and mass marketed to us plebs. So then, comes along the demonization of healthy, natural foods that human beings have always eaten, animal proteins, animal fats. And at that stage, you then have basically human populations in Europe and North America in particular progressively getting fatter and fatter and fatter. And then you have, from this date, an explosion in obesity, but then also dementia and Alzheimer's. That also seems to have coincided with the change in dietary advice away from natural foods that humans have always eaten towards toxic processed sugars and carbohydrates, particularly actually the carbohydrates that have been sold as healthy food, and animal fat has been demonized. So, rather than eating butter, people eat, which is a natural product, people instead eat something that's called margarine, that's been made in a factory, and that's been marketed up as being healthier. And it's also an awful lot cheaper. You can make these products in a highly industrialized fashion. So we are where we are now, due to, I believe, a change in dietary advice that's made us die earlier. This has killed, this dietary advice has killed literally hundreds of millions of people, if not billions of people in the developed world. And then you've also had an explosion in life-limiting afflictions like diabetes. And then also, you've also had a massive rise in heart disease at a time. So heart disease has been going up as animal fat consumption has been going down. For the sake of the Gulag tube sensors, let's just say this: correlation doesn't equal causation. But there might be something going on there. So about 3 months ago, I decided that I needed to lose some weight, or I wanted to lose some weight. And I also wanted to just do an experiment with my own eating habits. Because I'd always suffered like muscle stiffness, soreness. I am 59, so getting up out of bed in the morning, it would take a bit of time for things to loosen up. And I thought I would try something different. I was eating too much bread, too much pasta, too much, well, not really, maybe too much potatoes as well. And I was never on any of this kind of super low fat. I never chose any of that toxic stuff. But anyway, I tried trying to lose weight in a conventional way, by just reducing the portion size, or how often I would eat. And this isn't really a digression, but this Michael Mosley, the bloke who's allegedly died in Greece. Personally, I don't buy that, by the way. There's a good chance that this bloke is still alive. They've just said he's dead. He's got a new book out, hasn't he, all about the people's pantomime. And that'll be pushing, I would imagine, his book that's going to be produced, sold posthumously. That's always good for sales, isn't it, incidentally? When somebody dies, a musician or an author or something, their book sales normally soar. So this book by Michael Mosley about the people's pantomime, it probably wouldn't have sold that great. But, there might be more interest in it now with his untimely death. Can you see where I'm going with this? And somebody doesn't actually have to die, in order for you to publicly say he's dead. All you need to say is that he's died. It's probably off on some Caribbean island somewhere. Anyway, I digress. This was the geezer that popularised this 5-2 diet, where you basically ate less than 1,000 calories for 2 out of the 7 days a week, and then you ate normally for the other 5. Now, I had tried that probably about 10 years ago, and it just didn't work for me because it created massive hunger pangs. Not just the 2 days on the sub 1,000 calories, but the 5 other days as well. So for me, I actually ended up gaining weight on a 5-2 diet because it just seemed to A, lower my metabolism, and then B, create massive hunger pangs. So you look at all of this stuff, don't you? Same as I've been on what's it called now, on Facebook. They have these real things, and this what's it called, Greg Wallace, this Eat Well for Less guy, he's doing the same stuff. He's like saying, oh, you can lose weight, and here's my healthy chicken curry. So he's got white rice with it, so basically you eat food like that and you're going to get massive glucose and insulin spikes. So I kind of knew some of this, but I came across it's if I think back to how I actually came across this idea of switching to what essentially is a carnivore diet. That's what I've been basically doing, or paleo. Um, I came across it through this guy called Eddie Abu, and he was recommended this Auditing Britain channel. This bloke just mentioned it as a one-off. Oh, he'd lost a lot of weight, but it was amazing what this Eddie Abu would. So I looked him up, and this Eddie Abu guy basically is calling out uh, complex carbohydrates. He explained that, and I remembered this from A-level biology. I remember doing this experiment where you chewed a piece of bread using your saliva, you put it in a test tube, and then you put some of this like Benedict solution in, and basically the solution initially wasn't blue, but you heated it up, and then it turned to blue when the carbohydrates in the blood were changed into glucose. So basically what we're saying here is that a carbohydrate molecule is just a long chain of glucose molecules. So when you're actually eating carbohydrates, it very quickly turns into sugar. So there's this guy called a GP from Liverpool called Dr. David Unwin, who I think is a good guy in many ways, in that he's, I don't know, like something like he's reduced his expenditure on diabetes drugs at his GP practice by something crazy like 80%. By recommending that diabetics ditch carbohydrates, because carbohydrates quickly break down into sugars. And then to deal with a sugar spike, obviously your body creates insulin. Now, something again that I didn't understand, I didn't fully know, was that insulin actually is a hormone, and it's a fat storage hormone. And the role of insulin is it converts sugar in your bloodstream into fats. I think what's happening, with the likes of, say, this Greg Wallace guy and the official NHS healthy eating advice, is that they've been misleading people. They've been tricking people into eating a diet that leads to like a sugar and insulin roller coaster. So I used to notice this myself. I would have maybe some pasta or something in the evening time. I'd be quite full at maybe 7 o'clock. And then by 9 o'clock, I'd be like starving, hungry again. And this is basically when I ate the pasta, blood sugar up, release of insulin, then blood sugar would drop again, and then that would prompt feelings of hunger. And this is why you get a lot of people who are eating a high sugar diet, high carb diet. This explains why they're constantly snacking. It's all very well for somebody like Greg Wallace to say stop snacking, but you're setting somebody up to fail unless you actually address the underlying cause of the snacking, which is high carb, high sugar diet. There's a mosquito there. So there's a number of doctors who are on YouTube. If you want to actually learn about the biomechanics of your body, there's some very good people. So this Dr. David Unwin, he's got a YouTube channel. Another one is Dr. Anthony Chafee, Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Zoe Harcum. There's also a channel called No Carb Life, which is just like this, literally, I don't know, probably 1,000 videos of personal testimonies of people who've lost huge amounts of weight, or people who were type 2 diabetic who've managed to reverse their diabetes completely, so they're no longer injecting them with insulin, because what they've done is that they've removed sugar and carbohydrates, which your body breaks down into sugar, from their diet. So that begs the question, doesn't it? Like, what are these people eating? Well, the answer is that they're eating animal products. So they're eating meat, and in many cases also dairy products. So again, this was something that I did know, but it wasn't at the front of my mind, because what I also realised is just how much the government and the government-controlled health bodies, which includes in Britain the National Health Service, how much their advice has been skewed towards pushing you away from I was going. Let's see if I can say a natural human diet. Um, let's just flesh that out for a minute. I'm talking now from Finland. So in Finland, for 5 months of the year, there's snow on the ground, right? So Finns have been living in Finland for thousands of years. So my question is like, what were Finns in December eating? In the 14th century, 15th century, and the answer is that they were on a carnivore diet. So, you have all of this kind of propaganda that you need to eat salads and 5 a day, 5 fruit and veg a day. Otherwise, you're going to be unhealthy and you're going to die. Well, that wasn't the case. People thrived. If you look at, the American founding fathers, people like Adams, um, these people lived until their 90s or later, and they weren't eating 5 a day. I used to, when I taught at the last school in Guildford, or near Guildford, we used to have church services, and I used to look at on the walls. You'd have like plaques about famous people from, I don't know, 1700 or something, and I always used to be quite surprised about just how old some of these people were when they died. Because I think if you, first of all, you'll have a lot of, I'm sure there'll be some normie people watching this, maybe this other GP, Daryl Mullen. He'll say, oh, well, life expectancy was very low back then because they weren't eating their 5 a day. They weren't, Brits weren't eating oranges and bananas, and that you need to eat oranges and bananas in Britain to survive. I'm saying here is that we've been told massive lies. In terms of those life expectancy things, like, if the BBC says that life expectancy in Britain in 1700 was 35, that may or may not be true. Plus, the other thing that you've got to factor in is that even if that figure is correct, it's only a mean average that's been dragged down massively by sky-high infant mortality that existed at that time. And then also you've got other issues, haven't you, like the fact that there was no proper sanitation back then. So even if life expectancy was lower, which I'm not sure it was once you survived childhood, it might have been down to other factors, like poor sanitation, rather than a food-related issue. So what did I actually do? Well, for me, I've cut out potatoes, rice, pasta, and any other form of like processed carbohydrates. So I will eat some, tomatoes, cucumbers, red pepper, green pepper, and stuff like that. But my diet now is overwhelmingly protein packed and animal fat. And basically what's happened in like 3 months is that I've lost about 10 kilos at the moment. And I've not starved myself at all. I've not felt hungry. I can actually, it's not been like when I've tried to lose weight in the past and I've been climbing up the walls, or even unable to sleep because I've been so hungry. When I've switched to this way of eating, I've not felt hungry at all, and I feel a lot better in terms of I don't have morning aches and pains. Mentally, I feel sharper. Blokes aren't supposed to notice stuff like this, but my skin looks better. My eyesight has also improved too, particularly at night time. So all sorts of amazing things have happened since I've switched to this way of eating. Now, I probably would like to lose a little bit more weight, so I'll carry on eating in this way. And actually, that's another thing that I've noticed with this is that I'm now able to do long fasts. I think the longest fast that I've done is 36 hours. Now, there's no way that I would have been able to do that in the past when I wasn't used to eating this way. When I wasn't fat adapted, when my body was just used to burning sugar and carbs, which break down into sugar as its primary fuel source. And I've been eating like this all my life, basically. So the first 2 or 3 days, it did feel a little bit strange. Again, I don't mean hungry, but it did feel a little bit strange once my body was adapting to using what are called ketones, which what basically your body breaks animal fat down into, and it's used as a fuel source is ketones. And apparently your brain works best on ketones. So this explains why many people who switch to a carnivore diet, they experience greater mental clarity than they did before when they were eating the standard NHS approved food pyramid that basically puts, carbohydrates at the bottom. That's what you should be basing your diet on. And then the other thing as well, sorry, this is a little bit rambly here, but I think sometimes it's quite good to do something that's where I've not planned it out as much. I don't think that this kind of dietary advice, this terrible dietary advice that's been given out, from government health officials and then pushed into primary healthcare through mandates. Remember just how important those health mandates are. Dr. Daryl Mullen, the GP, he has no autonomy whatsoever. Patient rocks up, and basically what he's got to do is to apply the relevant NHS protocol, and he has to abide by that protocol. And if he fails to do that, and he does it too often, he'll get into trouble. And I also think too that it's no accident. I think this experiment where you took the bread and the Benedict solution, and then when it turns into sugars, it turns blue. I don't know, you can write that in the comments if any of you did that experiment. I think that was even at O-level biology when I did that. Of course, the people running the NHS know that carbohydrates quickly break down into sugars. They must know that, and then they must also know the problems that are caused when your body is dependent on burning sugar as its primary fuel source, and then also the problems of having very high levels of insulin, resting insulin in your bloodstream. It's not a surprise that people have been putting on weight in general when dietary advice switch from a natural human diet to this kind of unnatural, low-fat, high-carb, so-called healthy eating recommendations. And cutting to the chase here, I think that this is quite deliberate, and it's reduced life expectancy. I firmly believe that. They want us sick and unhealthy. And how have they done that? Well, in various potions, obviously, but a big one has been getting you to adopt an unhealthy way of eating. So another thing that I've noticed is when I'm in the supermarket here in Finland, you'll see some pretty big people, and you'll look in their shopping trolley, and basically they're all on they don't eat butter, they have low fat spread. They don't have full fat milk. They don't have semi-skim milk. They have zero fat free milk. So you can tell that these people, they're not bad people. They are people who are trying to look after themselves. They're actually following the government's healthy eating advice. But these people are 100 kilos. These people are very, very unhealthy people. Many of them have got diabetes. So, again, if you think about it, diabetes is a problem amongst people who they struggle to metabolize carbohydrates that turn into sugar. They become what's called insulin resistant. So you look at the NHS, and they had I'll put some a screenshot up here of what the NHS advises diabetics to eat. And really, I find it absolute insanity that the NHS is still encouraging diabetics to eat carbohydrates, I don't know, breakfast cereals, pasta, bananas, just which break down into sugar. It would be like saying to somebody who's got a peanut allergy, don't stop eating peanuts, just have an EpiPen, and this is the philosophy. It's so you've got a problem with glucose, body can't cope with it, so Doesn't matter. Keep on eating carbohydrates. Keep on eating sugars. Just inject yourself with more of the magic solution, which again sort of fits in with this trend that we've seen over the last 4 years, which is you don't need to take personal responsibility for your own health. All you need to do instead is trust the science, comrade, and be a good obedient consumer of big pharma's medications, big pharma's products. So the other thing that I've noticed, because I've watched an awful lot of YouTube videos during this 3 months about carnivore diet, paleo diet. You know, for me, as I say, I still eat a few non-starchy vegetables, a few, but I have radically changed what I eat. So there's none of the carbs anymore, the processed industrial carbs, what I would call peasant food. Because the other interesting thing as well is that, and this might be quite hard for me to find, is, and I have looked for it, but I remember seeing menu cards from the World Economic Forum's dinners at Davos, and you know, they aren't being served Greg's steak bakes, as Nick Hayes said. You know, they're eating prime cuts of meat. They're eating animal fats. They're not eating crickets. They're not eating bean burgers. They're eating real food. They're eating a proper human diet, something that human beings were eating for millennia and thriving on. Again, all you have to do is to look back to photos from the 1970s to see how people looked then, and then compare that against what people look like today, especially those who have been duped into eating high carb, low fat diets, following the so-called healthy eating advice that's actually uh, illing them. So I think, you know, many of the people pushing this low fat, high carb, no snacking type message, a lot of these people, they know what they're doing, and they're part of the big club. They're big club actors as well, and they want you brown bread. That's what they're doing. They're setting you up to fail. They're setting you up to DI. Another interesting thing that I've noticed is that many people who are eating a proper human diet. So, you know, the November Hotel Sierra says don't eat red meat. Well, I'd say, like, eat more red meat. November Hotel Sierra says don't eat eggs. I'd say eat more eggs. Eggs are packed full of nutrition. November Hotel Sierra says don't eat full fat dairy. Well, I would say definitely do eat that, and stay well away from any of these low fat products that are stuffed full of sugars. November Hotel Sierra says don't salt your food. So I put plenty of salt on my food. Something, again, that human beings have been eating for millennia and thriving on. And I think the final thing that I would say is that there seems to be a crossover between people who have discovered this whether you want to call it carnivore, paleo, whatever it is, and it's like a Venn diagram. There's a crossover, very, very big crossover between people who understand that they've been duped on healthy eating advice, and people who did not go and see Britney Spears and the Boosters live in concert. And I find that very, very interesting. These are people, I guess, who are inclined towards critical thinking. They're open-minded. They've done a little bit of studying again about how your body works. You know, your body can either run on sugars or it can run on ketones. What are the pros and cons of using those two different fuel sources? What did human beings use as their primary fuel source for millennia? So then I think they're naturally more inclined towards critical thinking. But I'm also sensing a spiritual dimension again to this, that So, yeah, and maybe some of it is down to the fact too that these people who are eating carnivore, you don't need to eat as often. You don't have these crazy hunger pangs because when you do eat, you're eating nutritionally dense food. So you can go for long periods of time without eating, and this is called fasting, isn't it? And there are obviously links between spirituality and fasting. So it's all very interesting, basically, and there's no way that I'm going to go back towards eating their poisons, basically, their poisons that are made in factories. So, yeah, this isn't just as a disclaimer, do your own research. This is just something that's worked for me, and I certainly intend to stick with it. So that's all I want to say today. So, God bless.